All right, let's get right into it. There's a huge debate happening in Bitcoin right now, and it's all about spam. We're all seeing more and more stuff that isn't strictly financial data showing up on the network. And it's forcing this really tough conversation about what Bitcoin is actually for and, how we should protect it. So yeah, let's dive in. I mean, it's the first question everyone asks, right? It seems so obvious. Your email gets full of junk, you set up a spam filter. Your web browser's cluttered with ads, you install an ad blocker. So why can't we just do the same thing for Bitcoin? Just filter out all the data we don't want. Seems like a simple enough fix. And look, this is the one thing pretty much everyone in the space agrees on. The whole point is to make Bitcoin the best money it can be. So keeping that goal in mind, let's unpack why that simple idea of just blocking it is actually way more complicated and way more dangerous than it sounds. To really get why those simple fixes don't work for Bitcoin, we've got to first look at why they do work on the regular old internet we use every day. And the answer, as we're about to see, really just comes down to one single powerful word: centralization. You know the drill, right? Click on all the squares with the traffic light, or type these squiggly letters. That's a CAPTCHA, and it only works because a giant central company, usually Google, is sitting there acting as the referee. It's designed to slow you down, which stops spam bots, but it's completely built on trusting Google's servers. It's the exact same story with logins. To sign up for pretty much anything, you need an email. And have you noticed it's kind of a pain to get an email? That's on purpose. Companies like Google make it just difficult enough to, again, slow down the bad guys. But it only works because a central authority controls the whole process. If anyone could just instantly create a billion emails, this whole defense would just fall apart. Okay, now this one. This is the most important example for our discussion today. Your ad blocker is basically just a filter list. It's a set of rules that tells your browser what an ad looks like so it can block it. But ask yourself, where does that list come from? Who keeps it updated? A centralized company that you have decided to trust. You download their rules and your browser obeys. Just remember that detail, a trusted source for the filter. So what happens when we try to take that ad blocker logic, that whole idea of filtering, and apply it to a decentralized system like Bitcoin? Well, we fall right into what you could call the filter trap. It kicks off this constant, exhausting cat-and-mouse game that you can never, ever win. So first, a new rule gets made to block some type of transaction. The spammers see it, they change one little piece of their data, and boom, the filter is totally useless. So the filter has to be updated. Then they find another way around it. You update it again, they bypass it again. It literally never stops. And this right here, this brings us to the absolute core of the problem. In a system that is specifically designed to have no rulers, no one in charge, who gets the final say? Who is the person or the group that gets to decide what the new rules are every single day? When you put the two systems side by side, the dilemma just stares you right in the face. On the web, it's easy. A company you trust pushes the updates. But for Bitcoin, who would do that? A foundation? A committee of developers? The second you create a group with that kind of power, you haven't fixed Bitcoin. You've just recreated the exact same centralized model it was built to replace. And, this isn't just some abstract theory. It's exactly why the developers behind the main node software, Bitcoin Core, have been slowly moving away from these kinds of filters for years. They've seen firsthand that the filters are easy to get around and that trying to maintain them is just a huge, endless chore. So they're removing them. Not because they like spam, but to make the software more robust and efficient. Instead of trying to play whack-a-mole defining spam, the software just focuses on what miners actually care about, which transactions are paying the highest fees. It turns out that's a much better way to guess what's going to end up in the blockchain anyway. Okay, so if filtering is a dead end, that just leads us back to centralization. What's the solution? Are we stuck? Well, it turns out the answer was brilliant, and it was baked into Bitcoin from the very beginning. Satoshi Nakamoto saw this problem coming and designed an incredible economic solution to solve it. And it's really hard to overstate how important this is. Every other attempt at creating digital cash before Bitcoin failed, and a big reason why is because they couldn't solve this spam problem without a central company. Bitcoin cracked the code using pure economics, creating a system that literally protects itself. So, step one. The system makes it incredibly expensive and physically difficult to create new blocks. Proof of work forces miners to burn real-world, actual energy. This is the foundation. It's the anchor to physical reality that makes adding new space to the blockchain a genuinely costly thing to do.
Next, the system does something truly amazing. It takes that real-world cost, that massive energy bill, and it transforms it directly into Bitcoin's native money through the mining reward. Miners get paid in sats, and this is the moment where the physical cost, the work, gets minted into the money of the system itself.
And here it is, the final piece of this elegant puzzle. To get your data included in one of those precious energy-intensive blocks, you have to pay for the space you use. And you have to pay for it with the very same sats that were created by spending all that energy in the first place. It's a perfect, self-contained economic loop. And this just works. It's the only way we know of to prevent spam in a system with no boss. It doesn't need a committee arguing about what's spam and what isn't. Instead, it makes a very simple, very neutral proposal. You want to use the network's resources? Fine. Pay for them. This simple rule makes spamming on a huge scale just way too expensive to even be worth it. And this brings us right to the heart of the whole debate. This isn't really a technical problem. It's a philosophical one. It's about a fundamental choice, a trade-off. And the hard truth is, you just can't have it both ways. You really only have two paths in front of you. Path number one is centralization. We can create a committee, give them the power to define spam, and trust them to update the filters. Maybe the blockchain stays cleaner by their definition, but you've given up neutrality, and you've opened the door to censorship. Path number two is decentralization. We let the free market for transaction fees sort it out. Anyone can broadcast anything as long as they pay. The network stays totally neutral, but using it costs money. It's not free. At the end of the day, that's really what it comes down to. There's no magical third option where the network is decentralized, perfectly curated, and free. You either trust a group of people or you trust the economic code. There's no free lunch here. So that's the final question we're all left with. It forces every one of us to think about what we really value most about Bitcoin. Is the ultimate goal to have a perfectly clean database managed by a select few? Or is it to have a truly neutral, unstoppable money network, where the only thing that matters is whether you can pay the fee? What price are you willing to pay? Because the answer to that question is what will define Bitcoin's future.